Right after that, he said, until heaven and earth pass, not one jot or tittle will pass from the law until all is fulfilled. And then the Messianics will say, well, it's because it was all fulfilled later after he died. But the still point is, he literally said, I did not come for that. So why do they think he still did? Even if an idea of a time break was applicable, he still said, that's not the reason why I came, period. No matter when the Torah ends, no matter when heaven comes, that's not why I came, right? So it's kind of, I don't know. I think that if Jesus knew what the Christians were doing today in the Messianics, I think he would be embarrassed. Welcome to TaNaCh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Learning Hebrew using the weekly Torah Parsha. This week we're going to be on Parsha Balak, week number 40, not episode 40, with our Different Than Arms, Gavriel R.A. Sanders. Welcome back, my friend. Welcome back, my friend.
You're talking to me?
I'm talking to you. Hey, you talking to me?
That's so nice of you. That's so nice of you. Thank you. I haven't been talked to for at least 45 seconds. So.
Right. And with your crazy schedule, I'm lucky to be talking to you at all right now.
You really are.
Yeah.
It's been like crazy. You know,
Right.
I came here to Jerusalem a little over a year ago. I had no idea what I was going to do. And, you know, my day started at 6:20 in the morning.
Wow.
And I'm lucky if I'm done by midnight. It's just like so crazy the different things here I'm not going around the country touring. You know,
right.
Sitting here in my cave.
That's a lot.
So.
That is a lot. I mean, and when you have that much on your plate, it's you really need to be careful and make sure you have plenty of time to rest, because you don't want to get to the point of burnout either. You know.
Yeah,
that's
even though back in the old Pentecostal days, we used to say, "I'd rather burn out than rust out." Okay, bless the Lord. So.
Right, that's funny. Cool.
All right, so what are we doing?
Okay, so if you're new to the channel, our process will be 4 major parts going into this thing. And that is, the first stage will be, I will read whatever verse we decide to start from. We don't always start from the beginning of the Parsha, but most of the time we do. We'll just make it through as many verses as we can in like 45 minutes. And then the last 10 to 15 minutes, Gavriel comes in. That's stage 5. He'll come in and give us a nice little Torah Parsha wisdom at the very end in a nutshell. But the first stage is, I'll read through it the best I can. He comes back, irons it out, just reads it in beautiful Hebrew. And then it comes back again. The second time he'll come back. And he will break down each word with prefixes, suffixes, without explanation. Just speak them. And like I said, it may sound unintellectual because it's not used to our language, but that's what we want to see. We want to see those pops. And then on the 4th round, he comes back and gives the grammatic breakdown and explains everything. And so with that said, we can get started whenever you are ready, Master Splinter. I bet you've never been called...
That just seems like... That's very funny. You have one thing to do, and I've got 75% of the heavy lifting. So, okay.
Yes, you
well,
do.
Listen, it's not any different than the rest of my life here. So let's put this on the plate also, and go for it. So, all right, okay. You're batter up on verse 2.
All right, let's get this thing switched over to screen. Very good. Okay, here we go. Again, I've got the white mouse, and you've got the black palm. Vayar. See, I'm already being thrown off Vayar. I'm going to go with that. Vayar Balak ben Tzipor over 8 Kol Asher Asa Yisrael. You notice that I'm getting a little bit better with the reish, because I used to roll it with my tongue. Now I'm trying to focus the back of the throat on that. Yisrael lemur. La emori. Oh yeah, la emorite. Got it. Cool. La emorite.
Okay. Beautiful.
There you go. Go for it.
Vayra Balak ben Tzipor et kol asher asa Yisrael le'emori. Okay, let's break this down a little bit. Va and Yar saw Balak, that's his name, ben Tzipor, son of Tzipor, et, that's untranslatable, kol all asher, which asa did, Israel, le'emori, to the Amorite.
Okay.
So this is once again, we've seen this in almost every Parsha that we've studied, and if you go through and do your own study, you'll see this phenomenon of a vav, which means and, of course, but the tense of the verb that's here, yar, normally this would be future, but the vav makes it past. We've talked about that many times. Balak ben Zippor. It's interesting that the Balak is the name of the king we're going to talk about, and he's the son of a person named Zippor. Zippor is actually the Hebrew word for bird. So
Is that
it's
like
a little
Moses'
slighty.
wife, Tzipporah?
That's exactly.
Okay.
This is the masculine form, I guess. It's interesting because the word Zippor in Hebrew by itself is a feminine noun anyway.
Interesting.
Zippor hazot. And then this is a this is a phrase that we have here, kol asher asa, all which done Israel la'emori. So there's not a whole lot to cover in here that we haven't covered in previous conversations. Nothing's really, although I just want to say right here that this la here, you notice that it's a kamatz
Yes, sir.
as opposed to like a patach
Right.
down here. And this, when you have this, or even sometimes this underneath a lamed at the beginning of a word, versus where's there one in here? So I'm looking for shva. Oh, okay, the two dots here, the shva. So it would be le'emori. That would be to an Amorite, but la means the, because
Oh,
basically you have lamed is one of those. There are a few letters where the hey gets of the gets sort of absorbed into the first consonant. So lamed does that, bait does that. So it'd be b for and ba for the, and l and la, and k and ka. So it's a little hard to hear those differences because they go by so fast, but grammatically you definitely see them. So in here we says really be, well, it says it right here, the Amorites.
nice.
Okay,
Okay.
so okay, you
So
forgive my
just
but I have to
so
go
my
ahead.
question would be, I know you explained how the lamed does become in la instead of le, how it becomes the, but why not use the hey, the ha emory instead of la? Why not use that?
Because of that word right there.
To the so it's kind of a shortened, like a condensed version, I guess.
Right.
Got it.
So, and that's what happens. So
To the.
I'm
I
saying to you that
see.
the letter bait
Yeah.
does this, and
Okay.
the letter lamed, the letter kaf does this, and the letter
Lovely.
lamed does this. Um, and sometimes, not often, but I've definitely seen it, and I think even in the Psalms once in a while, you might see a bha or a lha.
Okay.
I can't think of a case of a kaha, but the other two I've definitely seen in different places in TaNaCh. Okay, again, they're rare, but they happen. So, all right, I think we've exhausted two.
Yeah, I
Let's
like
move
that.
on to
That was
three.
nice. Okay. Vayaga.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
Be very careful.
Oh, I just missed it. I see it now that you said that. Vayagor. No, yeah, Gor, right? No,
Hmm.
so I'm confused. Vayagor. Moav. Mifnei. Mipnei, not Mifnei. Mipnei. Ha'am. Ma'od. Ki Rav. Hu. Vayakoch. No, Vayakotz. Right? Moav.
Hmm.
Mifnei B'nai Israel. Did I catch them?
You caught them. Good man.
Yeah, only did it
Okay.
because you said to be careful. Speed bumps right there.
V'yagor, very good. V'yagor Moav mipnei ha'am me'od ki rav hu v'yakotz Moav mipnei b'nei Yisrael. All right, so va and Yagor, or it's Yagor, um, frightened, terrified, or
He.
they say alarmed.
So basically, he,
Huh?
even though they didn't write it in English, and he
That's
frightened.
right.
Okay.
Right. So Moab was frightened. So Moab is really a country or an area name, a geographic name, but they're usually like a person. So, and he was frightened or feared Moab, Mipnei, from before. So this is me from Pnei, literally
Face.
face of,
Good.
from the
Good.
word panim, but Mipnei means like lifnei, before. ha'am, the people, ma'od, very, ki, because, or sometimes that, rav, a lot, much, great, they say numerous, who is he, and he is she, and dog is fish. The Yakots, actually, the accent mark is here, the
Oh,
Yakots,
yeah.
and he, this is a synonym for this one over here, feared, and again, it has to do with fear or dread or panic or terrified. Moab, again, like this. Mipne, just like we had here, Mipne before. B'nai, sons of Yisrael. So the breakdown on this is, first of all, as you pointed out, and I appreciate it, as is often the case, notice we said before that the Yud has what's called a dagesh, a dot, which really doubles the consonant in this case. Sometimes it only hardens the consonant, like here, p. Okay? It just makes it. We haven't really talked about the Beged Kefet or the Bagad Kefat letters, but that's for another time. But this really tells us that what the root is, and that it has this Yud stands here for third person masculine singular. In other words, he, or it could be it. So in this case, and it's also, we have this case of the Vav Epuch, the reversing Vav, as it were, we call it. So, and it's written in the future, but it means it in the past. And so, and feared or was alarmed, as they say here, Moab, which is, we said, is an area, it's on the other side of the Jordan River. Mipne, from before Ha'am, the people, very much, because great or numerous, they say here. Who's who referring to? Who here is, what's the antecedent? What goes before it? Because this is a pronoun. So what's the noun that goes before it? We have to go back up to here. So who is referring to Ha'am? So Moab is afraid of what? The because, and very afraid. And it's interesting where we put the Ma'od, Mipnei Ha'am Ma'od. You could have put it over here. The Yagor Moab Ma'od Mipnei Ha'am. That's interesting, just as I look at the syntax, the word order. So this is kind of out of place to make a point. Like we're talking serious terror going on here. Ki, because Ravhu, because great was he, the Yakots. And you say, well, Sanders, why is this the Yakots, and not the Yakats? And William, you caught it, and your eye caught this one too.
Right.
That this is a little kamatz here, and this is a bigger kamatz. Most of the Sephardic Sidurim prayer books or renditions of the TaNaCh will give an extension on this, so you know that it's pronounced O and not A. Okay, very important to know,
Huh.
especially when you're trying to figure out the root. The Yakots. So and these are, I said before, these are synonyms. Now, let me just finish this out, and then I want to come back and say something grammatically that's important here. So we have again here, Moab is alarmed, and here we have Moab is in a state of dread, and here we have Mipnei Ha'am, and here we have Mipnei B'nai Yisrael. So this kind of construction, do you remember what it's called? The type of construction we call this?
I don't remember.
Okay, so basically what we say is, this is like statement A. Whoops, didn't want to do that. This is like statement A, and this is like statement B. And they really are in parallel. So I said, this, the Yagor Moab, and the Yakot's Moab, this is A, and this is B. From before the people, from before the children of Israel. Those also, this is like A and this is B. This is called, when they see these things in parallel, like I'll just make something up. God loves the righteous, the Lord favors the just.
Oh, yeah.
I've said the same thing using one set of words in the top one and another set of words in the bottom, but I have a harmony here of ideas. That's called parallelism, or the Hebrew word for it is called hakbala. It's spelled exactly the same way as hakabala, but not pronounced that way. Hakbala means parallel. And there are different types of parallelism. And many years ago, probably maybe 6 or 7 years ago on this channel, we did a whole piece that was quite detailed on the concept of parallelism. Maybe sometime we'll bring it out again. But right now I'm just pointing it out to you as we see it because it's a very common feature in TaNaCh. It's part of the poetic structure, if you will, of TaNaCh. And I think it's gorgeous. You can see it in the English also here. You
Yeah,
can see Moab
I
and
can. Yeah.
Moab, alarmed and dreaded, and the people and the Israelites. So you have like an A and a B and a C, and then we have A1, B1, C1 down at the bottom. Okay, so that's what I wanted to point out in this particular verse was the existence of this parallel
Okay.
set of ideas. Okay,
Nice.
let's move on to 4.
Okay. Very good. Vayomer Moav El Sikne Midian Ata Yelachaku 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 Hakahal Et Kol Sin. Oh, hold on. That's gonna take a second. Savivotenu. Savivotenu. That was a tough word.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait for you to explain that one. Kilchok Hashor et Yerek Hasadeh Ubalach ben Tzipor Melech Lemoav Ba'et Hahu.
Okay, let's break it down. Va and Yomer, he said. Moav, it's Moab that said. El, to Zikne Midian, elders of Midian. We'll come back to this.
Okay.
Ata, now. Yelachachu, basically will lick up. They, and by the way, well, I'll come back to that. Just
Oh,
remind me.
because the Yud Vav is they, right?
Right, the
Okay.
Yud and the Vav here.
Got
Okay, so let's come back. Ha-kahal, the congregation, or the people. It's what it means. Et, untranslatable. Kol, all. Svivotenu, basically our environment, the area around us. Kilchoch, as will lick up or licks up. Ha-shor, the bull. What do they call it over here? An ox. Okay, that works. Ha-shor, ha-ox. Et, untranslatable. Yerek ha-sadeh. Yerek is grass, from the word yarok, green.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ha-sadeh, the field, grass of the field. Uvalak, and Balak ben Zippor, the son of Zippor, Melech, king, LeMoav, 2 or 4 Moab, the area, the country, as it were, Ba'et, in the time, Hahi, that, basically, in that time. So there's a few things to break down
Nice.
here.
Good.
So we keep running into this same phenomenon all the time, the reversing vav, and the fact that this yud here is a dot in it. And of course, we've said this before. If I were to come over here and take off the vowels altogether, that could be really scary. You really need to know what you're talking about to read that. And then there's an option here to do the vocalization without the cancellation marks, but then you would end up probably saying something like Vayomer, as opposed to what the cancellation gives us very clearly that we're to do is Vayomer. Okay. So again, it's Moab we're talking about, and he says to the Zikne Midian. Now, again, we say it over and over and over again because it's such a high frequency structure. We have a noun here. And this is plural, and it's plural masculine. But doesn't a plural masculine usually have
Yud Mem.
Yud Mem?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it does. But when you have a case of noun plus noun, because Midian is a noun, okay, it's a place name, okay, proper noun. and this is elders, the mem goes away. Now, we just saw this in the previous verse. We did? Yeah, right here. Bnei Yisrael. It's Banim Shel Yisrael, sons of Israel. But Hebrew likes to collapse things down. It's very economical. And so, like we have Bnei Yisrael, here we have Ziknei Midian. So instead of Haskenim Shel Midian, we have Ziknei Midian. Okay? And everybody knows that it's definite. In other words, that there's a hey inferred in there, but it's not there. The word ata for now, and it's not the word you. If you look at it, if you hear it, you're going to think, oh, you.
It
No, it's
looks
not you.
like, yeah, it looks
That
like
would
you.
be with an aleph. So Moab is speaking to the elders of Midian now at this time, and he's saying, Yelachahu, Yelachahu, uh, they will look. This is future. This is not. There's no reversing vav here. So, and the root is lamed het chaf, and you see it right here, by the way. It's going to repeat it again. And it basically means like to lick something up, like off the ground or something. So it says basically it says they will lick up, and then it gives you tells you who, the congregation. Now I find this interesting because this is plural, the verb is plural, and the noun is singular. Um, it reminds me, by the way, of the very first verse in Genesis, which is the exact opposite. This is plural verb plus a singular noun. In Genesis, we open up Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'ta'aretz. Bereshit bara, that's singular, created. Elohim, plural. Okay, but it's not. We know that. We've had that conversation. By the way, I love what you and Greg did this last week on that subject. It was great.
Cool.
People should listen to that. So the kahal is the congregation is going to lick up what? Et kol svivoteno. All of our surroundings. So this is the word saviv. Saviv means around. Sviva is environment or surroundings. And when we have um, certain endings put on to the noun, if the noun is feminine, the hey is going to convert to a taf. Don't try to remember all this. You're just going to hear it plenty of times. But just like the mem disappeared over here, there's a phenomenon here with this noun where the hey goes out to lunch, I guess, with the mem from up here, and it becomes a taf. And this here, this tenu, this right here means our. So svivo tenu means our surroundings, our environment. And how is this kahal, this group, going to do that? It uses the word as in here. K here is not part of the root. It's an add-on. It's one of the Moshe Kalev 7 letters that we identified long ago as words that the letters that prefix. And l'choch, kilchoch, is what a cow does when it's like chewing up or munching up the grass. That's what it is. Kilchoch hashor, like an ox licks up the grass of the field. Et yerek hasadeh, green. Okay, the word yerek, and we use this like in plural. Yerakot are vegetables. Somebody brought me a big box of vegetables today. Yerakot. So vegetables are called greens. What do we call the grocer where you go get all your vegetables? The green grocer. Same idea in Hebrew. Uh, so he's pointing out that this people is going to come along and just basically eat up the land from them. And so Balak ben Zippor, now it tells you who he is. He's the king, Melech, Moab, to or for Moab, Be'et Hahi. And you say, wait a minute. Doesn't that say who? This is another very recurring phenomenon. And by the way, I think one of the evidentiary points to the oral law or to the concept of what we call an oral tradition. Because obviously, certain people, Karaites, Messianics, many of them, and of course, certain evangelicals and definitely the Protestants say, well, no, the Jews just made all of that up. But the first evidence that we have of an oral tradition is in the reading of the script itself. Because if I just go right over here, like I just did before, and I take it off, William, how would you read that right there?
I would say ha who.
Right.
Yeah.
But what actually is it when we come back here and look at what the Masoretes put in?
Hahi.
Hahi.
Yeah.
Why? Why is it that way? Because this word et, which by the way is exactly, and we're back into some parallelism going on in here. When you see common terms or very familiar, similar terms, excuse me, it's evidentiary of parallelism. So this is basically it's at that time, but this has to be feminine because this is feminine. So well, why didn't you just put a yud in here? That's the 64,000 shekel question. Or as they say in the academic, I don't know. All right. So that's just a very interesting features in here. This is, by the way, this whole parsha is so loaded. We could spend weeks just going through the different language features in this one, especially since it's so heavy with poetry coming up later when he actually declaims his parables and so forth. So we won't get there this year, but Mitzvah Hashem next year. Okay, let's go into 5.
All right. All right. Here we go. Okay. Vayishlach Malachim. Malachim. Yeah, it seems like it should be Melachim. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Et Bilam ben Baor.
Mm-hmm.
Petorah Asher al Hanahar Eretz B'nai Amo Likro. Yeah, Likro. That was weird. What's weird is my said it without thinking it. Huh. I would have said Likra or something like that. Likro lo lemor hine yetza mi Mitzrayim hine kisa et ein haaretz vahu. See, there it is. Vahu yoshev mibuli. No, mimuli.
Very
Excuse
well
me,
done.
mimuli.
Mm-hmm. Mimuli, nachon. Malachim el Bil'am ben Beor Torah asher al hanahar eretz bnei amo likro lo lemor hine am yatsa mi Mitzrayim hine chisa et ein haaretz vehu yoshev mimuli.
Nice.
Let me bring that up a little bit. Okay. Vayishlach. There's a parsha by that name in the book of Genesis. Va and Yishlach, the root word, sent. The Yud is telling us he. Vayishlach, he sent. Malachim, messengers. El, to. Bil'am ben Baor. So this is the name of Bil'am. A lot of people call him Bilam, right? Or Balaam, but it's like Bil'am.
Right.
Ben Baor. Torah. This is an area. It's a location. Like I don't know if it's a town or but it's a certain. It's a geographical reference. Asher, which, al, upon, the Nahar, river, Eretz, land, Bnei, sons of Amo, his people, Likro lo, to call to him, Lemor, saying, or to say, Hine, behold, Am, people, Yatsa, came out, went out, Mi Mitzrayim, from Mitzrayim is Egypt. Hine, behold, Chisa, covered, et, untranslatable, Ein, I is I, Haaretz, the land, Vehu, and he, Yoshev, is sitting or dwelling, Mi Muli, from opposite me,
November will mark 10 years TaNaCh Talk has actually been on the air. Very excited about that. To support my work here at this channel where I have all the different rabbis and teachers, and a lot of people go straight to the rabbis and support them, I also do need your help, so I really ask you to consider donating to this channel on a regular basis if you can. TaNachTalk.com, there's a link there. There's also a Patreon link I'll probably have at the end of the video on an ad. I've did an analysis over the past 6 months, and donation has dropped a lot on my side. Of course, I never talk about it. I only put the ad up there. I have gigs that I do in the evening to help pay the bills, and sometimes it requires more than less. But if you guys have some to spare, please send it in. I can certainly use it to help us out with this channel.
Shev is sitting or dwelling, mi muli, from opposite me. Okay, let's unpack this a little bit. Again, we have the reversing vav. So all of the verses that we've looked at to this point tonight, today, now, ata, all of them are opening with this same structure. The root is shalach, and the yud is telling us that it's talking about he. It's also indicating if I take away the vav, it's in the future, but with the vav, it reverses to the past. Malachim, now some people might say, hey, I think I know that word, but isn't that angels? Because a malach can be an angel, but what is the job of an angel? It's a messenger. Okay. So he sends messengers, El Bil'am, to Bilam, who is the son of Ben Beor. His father's name is Beor. Torah. So he could have said El Ptor, but I'll come back to the construction on this in a minute, to this area known as Ptor, which is upon, about the river in Eretz B'nai Amo, in the Eretz, the land of the sons of his people, to call him, likrolo, to say, then he goes on to say, that we see the word hine in here twice. Some of you know the song from Psalm 133, it says, hine matov u'manaim. Yeah, the word behold. It's a tension-getting word. Then he goes on to say, am yatsa, people. When they say, well, wait a minute, isn't that plural? No, not here. It's a mass noun, so it means like all of them together. So we say Am Yisrael, people of Israel. The people of Israel, Yatsa, this is the way you'd find it in the dictionary, means went out. From where? Mi Mitzrayim. It's interesting that the word Mitzrayim is one of these words. If you hear the ending of it, ayim, like enayim, oznayim, yadayim, okay, your legs, reglayim, 2 weeks, shvuayim. Yeah. That ayim, this is a dual thing. So it has to do with two straits, like rivers. There's more to talk about metaphorically on that. Hine chisa et ein haaretz. This is also very, very poetic language in here. Behold, it has covered. Well, what is covered? The people that went out of Egypt has covered at ein haaretz. Literally, ayin is eye, the land. So basically, the eye of the land has been covered by these people. And what is it? How they translate it over here? It hides the earth from view. In other words, they're so numerous, and we said that in the previous verse. There's so many of them, and that it's like imagine a huge herd of cattle, as far as the eye can see, like the buffalo used to be in the Wild West, 200 years ago in the western part of the United States, and just they're like a sea of these like big bovines. I don't know what you call them, eating up the grass. And that's what he's saying about the people of Israel. And now he's saying they've come out of Egypt and they're right here. And now they're Vahu Yoshev Mimuli. He's sitting, or settled is the word that they use here, Mimuli, opposite me. So here it says next to me, it really means opposite me, Mimul. So if I go out in the street here and I say, Eifo Hamafia, where's the bakery? And they say, oh, Mimulenu, opposite us. So the word Yoshev, we know in modern Hebrew means sit, but in biblical Hebrew it can be dwell as well. So it can literally mean sit, Yoshev Be'elyon, the one who sits in the heights, or it can be dwell, as I said. I wanted to come back to this word Torah.
All right.
Because if you look at it,
it looks like Torah.
Exactly right. So you could confuse it, but you would say, well, wait a minute, you don't have B Torah in the Torah, or L Torah to the Torah, or Me Torah from the Torah. What's this pay here? Well, actually, the word is Ptor. That's the name of the area. But we've all learned that hey we think of two functions. We think of hey at the beginning of a word means the, and hey at the end of a word might indicate that it's a feminine noun or something to do with a feminine verb, whatever. Usually often has a hey in the past. But this is not what this is. This is something that I think the technical term for it is locative. Well, what does locative mean? You lock it up? No. I mean, it has to do with location. So in different places in the Torah, you will find the name of a place and there's a hey on the end of it. So down here we talked about Mitzrayim. So, and we can say Yaakov halach Mitzrayma, and there's a hey on the end of it, Mitzrayma. It means he went in that direction. He went down that. How would we say it in Texas? They went that away. Except the that away really is specified by a specific name. So it's when you could kind of say, "Oh, he went Houston way." In fact, I think that might even have been said at some point.
Could have been.
You know. But Houston, that's what he's saying here. He went Pator way. So that's what this hey means. You say, "Well, gee, I never would have caught that." You're right. Most people never would have caught that, but it's definitely here. Um, Now, it's interesting here. It says here to invite him. This is to call him, likro. And this word likro it can mean either to read or to call. And then if it's going to be to call somebody, it's going to be called, it's not likro oto, it's going to be likro lo, just for the grammarians amongst us. And I think, is there anything else here that looks of interest? Just again, how would you normally say the word I? For the thing in
Ani.
iron.
Oh,
No,
I.
iron.
I. Let me
Right,
eyeball. Okay, I thought you meant me.
Father, little black hand here.
Okay, I got you. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Use your iron. Okay.
So, um,
So,
so
ain
if it's ayin, why is it ain?
means
Why is it
no.
ain?
Right.
No, it doesn't mean no.
Uh,
Remember, we have this phenomenon known as noun plus noun.
yeah.
This is a phenomenon of noun I and land. So it's noun plus noun. So the first noun almost always gets affected in some way. If it's plural, we saw what happens, the mem goes away. If it's singular, then there may be some change in the vowel from the original
Oh, okay.
way that it's pronounced by itself. So that's why it's ein haaretz and not ayin haaretz. Okay.
Okay.
So small thing, but deserves an explanation just as it occurs in context. Okay. And that's why we're taking it very slowly. Okay. Let's go to 6.
All right. This is probably our last one before we get out to a break.
Yeah, this will be our last one.
Okay, good deal. Here we go. V'ata lakana, I guess you could say, ara li et ha'am hazeh ki atzum hu mimenu mimeni, mimeni ulai ukal nake bo va'agar shenu min haaretz ki yadati et asher tabarik meborak va'asher, excuse me, va'asher ta'or ya ya'uar ya'uar.
Yeah, we'll come to that.
Okay, good.
Tough one.
Yeah.
Some tough features here.
Okay.
Ve'ata lechana arali et ha'am hazeh ki atzum hu mimeni ulai uchal nake bo ve'agarshenu min haaretz ki yadati et asher tevarech mevorach ve'asher to'ar, you are. Okay, let's pick it apart as far as the meaning is concerned. Ve ata. This is the first time we haven't had a verb here. And now, lecha na, basically, come, please. Come, please. Ara li, curse to me or for me. Et, untranslatable. Ha'am, the people. Hazeh, the this. Ki, because. Atzum, huge. Who, it's a big people. He's big. Mimeno, in other words, bigger than me. Atzum hu mimeni, from me. Ulai, perhaps. Uchal, I can. Nakebo, strike in him. Ve, and. Agarshenu, this is the shorish. I will be able to, or I can drive him. Agarshenu. We'll come back to this. Min haaretz, from the land. Ki, because. Yadati, I know, or I've known. Et, untranslatable. Asher, now et asher means basically that which. Tevarech, you will bless. Mevorach, is blessed. Ve asher, and that. Taor, that which you basically, that which you curse, you will be cursed. Or in this case, they put in the present, you are. So a few things to unpack in here. As we said before, this is not a verb here. This is the word that we saw appear, ata, now. So he's saying here, they say come then. This is really, it's like, and now, lachana. So this is from the word lech. We know that Avram Avinu, when in Genesis chapter 12, it says, lech lecha me'artzecha me'molatecha. And so this is, na is usually a word for petition or please, basically. So he's giving a command, lecha na. This is a bit of a variant on lech, which is the command form. This is another version of the same command form. Ara li, curse. This is we're just really getting to some great stuff that's in this chapter, but okay, it is what it is. Ara li, curse to or curse for me, this people, ha'am hazeh. And by the way, I just want to point out to people that when you have a noun and the hey is in front of it, the people. So if you want to say this people, how do you say that in Hebrew? You say the people, the this. That's literally what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that's what it's. So this is emphatic. He could have just said, "Curse the people," right? Okay, Arali et ha'am, but he's being very specific and emphatic when he does this. He says, "Arali et ha'am hazeh." This is the people I want you to curse. Okay, well, why? Key, and that's the key thing. That's the key idea. We want to know why. Okay, key atzum, because there's a huge number here. Atzum means great in terms of size or capacity and so forth. So atzum, ki atzumhu, because he's too big for me. These words mimeni. So the word me or may can be from by itself, sometimes than. But if you go again to that site we've talked about so many times here, pe'alim.com, pealim.com, and look at the prepositions and look up the word for min, mem nun, okay, mem nun sufit. You'll see this construction there. There's variations on this. Mimeni, from me. Ulai, perhaps. And this is also modern Hebrew. We see the same word. And this word uchal, what would you normally think that word means, just
To
looking
eat.
at it by itself?
Probably eat or
Right.
something, or consume.
Right, because you see the aleph and the chaf and the lamed, and you go, oh, three-letter root has something to do with food, right?
Yeah.
Not here.
Huh.
Okay, because how do they translate it over here? I can. Ulai uchal. Because there is the word yachol, yachal, and in the future, this is future, this basically means ulai uchal, perhaps you can't say this in English, but you kind of inferred it. Perhaps I will can, right? I'll be able to. Perhaps I will be able to do what? Nake bo. Some interesting things going on here between the Hebrew and the English, which is always the case. Now, I just happen to have the JPS up here tonight, the contemporary. Not a big fan because they take some licenses that I wish they didn't, but hey, you know what? They didn't ask me. So, all right. So he says, perhaps I will be able to what? Nake bo. Nake comes from the word to strike or to render a blow. In Egypt, the children of Israel witnessed 10, what were those called? Plagues? Not the best word. In Hebrew, we say eser makot, 10 blows, 10 strikings upon the people of Egypt.
That made more
And
sense.
and so Nake is it basically another question I have here is this I'm thinking about this now. Nakebo, menake. I have to think about this. Is this being used in the singular? Because it says here, I can thus defeat them, or is it plural? That's a good question. I have to think about that. It could go either way here. Nakebo, bo here in this case means in or upon him. Ve'agashenu, going into this word, is here's and this verb that we have here, agarshenu, if I took away this ending here and took away the vav here and just kept it as a simple future singular first person verb, it would be agaresh. It's what's called a PL. I call them number three verbs. Agaresh, like adaber, I will speak. Asaper, I will tell. Avashel, I will cook. It's the same category as that. It's an intensive, but that means nothing to us right now. But it happens to have a pronominal suffix on it. What's a pronominal suffix, Sanders? It's just a cluster of letters that tells me who we're talking about. So in English, we would have separate words. And in fact, this would be this would be a phrase. And I will drive them out is inferred. And here in Hebrew, it's just one word. So what's interesting to me is here in the Hebrew, this is bo, that's him. And nu here is also referring to him, although it looks plural, it's not. And over here, this is what I don't like. They translate both of them as them, and it's not accurate. But I understand why. And we're going to drive them from what? Min haaretz. And this is talking about the land of Moab. So Balak wants to drive them out. So he went to Bilam to curse them because why? Now we get into the metaphysical mystery woo-woo kind of stuff here. Ki, because yadati, I have known, or I know, et asher tevarech, that which you will bless, or whoever you bless here. The same phrase, by the way, et asher, shows up in Zechariah when it says that which the one whom they pierced. Same construction, by the way. Et asher tevarech, that you will bless, mevorach, will be blessed. So this is active, this is passive. And then it comes up again, same thing. Ve asher, that which, or the ones which, to'ar, you are. So this is active, this is passive. What's the difference between active and passive, Sanders? Explain that. Active means the subject is doing something, and passive means the object is receiving it and not doing anything. So it's like, I walked the dog. Okay, and the dog was walked. Okay, I read the book was read. I cooked the meal was cooked. First phrase is active, second phrase is passive. The meal didn't do anything, right? I cooked the meal. The meal was cooked. We don't know who cooked the meal in that case, but we just know that the meal was cooked, and we're glad because we're hungry. All right, so we have again some interesting construction here. This reminds me, by the way, we talked about Abraham a little bit, and this word lechana just was an echo of that for me from back in Genesis, where he says, "Lech lecha me'artzecha," go from your land. And then he goes on to say that in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, what's the big phrase, that the war cry, if you will, or battle cry of every Christian Zionist out there? I will bless those who bless you and curse the ones who curse you. All right. So this is a similar kind of phraseology here, that the ones that you bless will be blessed, and the ones which you curse will be cursed. So I think we want to migrate to the next section.
Yeah, this is probably a good spot right there. Another great one. So
Well, it's work. It's
yeah,
a little bit ponderous as we kind of go through this.
I
And
actually like it when there's more complicated words in there because it like longer words because it really it helps you see the division of root words more. I think when there's like really complex spellings like umigba ot or whatever it is. So anyway, yeah. So all right, we'll go ahead and hand this off to you as your final stage of the weekly Torah tidbit. Take it away.
okay, well, I don't know how tidbitty it'll be, but we'll just a couple of observations
You
that we
got it.
want to make. First of all, Balak is another one of the six Torah portions that are named after a person. We have, for example, Noah. We have Chaye Sarah in the book of Genesis. We have Yitro or Jethro in the book of Exodus. And then we have three that come together almost in a cluster here. We have Pinchas is coming up shortly, and we have Balak, and what's the one I'm forgetting? I did this last time. Only, I did. Now I did 5 and 6, and I forgot 4. That's really
Oh,
funny. Um,
Yisro?
but there are 6. No, we did Yitro.
Okay.
It's 2. It's the one before Chukat.
Okay.
So you can look it up, by the way, and then make me look good by whispering it to me somehow. So
Okay.
I don't care. I don't mind.
That's
There's
good.
so much to remember. So the interesting thing about this one is that this parsha is named after kind of a bad dude. This was the ultimate, idolatrous Gentile prophet at the time. He really was sort of the Gentile entity opposite Moshe, opposite Moses. And he was clearly endowed with some kind of mystical abilities. Uh, not everybody ends up talking to a donkey, right? So, and that's a whole parsha in itself. And then the whole issue here of why, Bilam, why Balak hired Bilam to come and curse. We can understand that because he'd heard that there was trouble in the hood, basically, and that his status was very much threatened by the presence of this huge multitude on his doorstep. And so he figured he was going to resort to some kind of spiritual subterfuge here to pull out the big guns spiritually, curse them. And he said right there at the end that we read earlier that if you bless somebody, they're going to be blessed. And if you curse them, I know it's going to happen. And he offered him all kinds of money, etc., in order to pull it off. And of course, in the end, uh, Bilam shows us that everything and everyone is ultimately subject to God. And he says very clearly to Balak, hey, I can't curse the ones that God has blessed. And so one of the things I think that was kind of a takeaway from this particular Parsha is that even when things look bad, there's still good things to find. And as I was thinking about this earlier today, just an Aramaic phrase popped into my head. Does that happen to you often? Have you seen somebody about that? Aramaic phrases popping into your head? No, it's a meaningful one. It basically goes like this: Kolman Avid Rahmana Latav Avid. What does that mean? Everything that the merciful one does is for good. And it's interesting that for us, especially today, with so many different polarizing forces and so many spectra, I would say. There's the political spectrum, and there's the moral spectrum, and there's these ideologies and these religious struggles. And we live here in Israel, and there's a whole shadow of Iran over us to the east, and what's happening up in the yes, all these different things. You look around, and you can find a lot of reasons to feel despair, unless you fall back to the simple proposition that's brought up by the prophet who says, "Tzaddik be'emunato yechyeh," that the righteous person lives on the basis of faith and trusting that everything that God does is for our good, even when it doesn't look good. And there are definitely things that don't look good, but we know that in the ultimate, it really is good. And the only way I can have that perspective and to come into, each day in spite of the news, by the way, weaning ourselves off the news is not a bad idea, because steady diet of that really toxifies your ability to trust said that to somebody I met this week. He's just a news hound, and he's always negative. Now, do you think there's a connection between those two things? So he's listening to the curses, if you will, of the nations against all the forces of good. Why do that? Take it away. Now, the other thing that I think that's very striking that I want to point out here in verse 9 of chapter 23 is the status of the Jewish people vis-a-vis the nations. And this is a tough one. And I'll mention a couple of things. I know that Bibi Netanyahu wrote a book a number of years ago called A Nation Amongst the Nations, and kind of trying to integrate Israel to the family of nations. And yet it's not working, is it? It seems like if we look at the climate of the world today, and I hope some of you are watching 2 years from now and things have radically changed, and Mashiach is here, and everybody's celebrating, and we're having a whole new world experience of world peace, etc. But right now, it doesn't look so good. And Israel is very much isolated, and we've got all these condemnations going on. That part's not new, but the intensity of it, and I think the widespread nature of it is definitely different. And there's really a prophecy involved in this. And here is part of the prophecy of Bilam, where he says here, Ki merosh tzurim arenu. So I'm seeing them from the mountaintops. Tzur can also be like a rock. Umigvaot, from the hills, asherenu. I'm able to perceive them, or I guess they use the word gaze. Hen am levadad yishkon. This is really the key thing right here. These words right here. Hen, therefore, kind of, or as it were, am levadad yishkon. A people alone will dwell. This is future from the word. If you know the word, you say it in English, Shekinah or Shechina. The word shachen is a word for neighbor. Shchuna is a word for neighborhood. Shochen, like I dwell, I reside. So this is basically, what do they translate over? Dwells. How is this nation of the Jewish people going to be vis-a-vis the nations? Alone. Going to be alone. Uvagoyim, and among the nation, amongst the non-Jewish people, lo yid chashav. Or if it were not the ending word in the sentence with this pausal accent here, it would be yid chashev, will be considered. Is that okay? They say not reckoned, won't be considered. This is really the ultimate status, and that's where we see we're there. We're there. Truth is, it's always been that way. The Jewish people were first persecuted for their religion. They were different than everybody else. Then when we hit 17th, 18th centuries, it switches to be less about religion and more about race, being a Jew, culminating ultimately in the Holocaust. And today, it's about the ideology of Zionism. The Jews have their own state, their own identity, etc., and the world doesn't like that. So it's tough, right? It's tough, but we understand that there's a bigger purpose behind this. And Hashem has ordained that the nation of Israel, the people of Israel, should live in a separate kind of category. And that's hard. Now, there's a very famous singer, actor, that I learned a lot of Hebrew from his music. His name is Yoram Gaon. The word Gaon means genius, by the way. And Yoram Gaon did some great stuff, and he was also somewhat politically involved. But many years ago, I'm going to say maybe close to 20 years ago, I read an article in Hebrew and there was an interview with him. And the interviewer asked him about the status of the Jewish people in the world. And he said this most brilliant thing. It sounds much, much better in Hebrew to my ear than it does in English, but I'll give it to you first in the Hebrew, then I'll translate it. He said, Anachnu rotzim lehiot am kmo kol ha'amim, aval b'rega sheniyeh kach lo niyeh. We want to be a people like all the other peoples, but the moment we become such, we'll cease to be. So it's the danger of the melting pot, as it were. I've said to some people I was talking to recently here in Jerusalem that the good life of America did more damage to the Jewish people than the Holocaust. It's a very audacious statement to make. So how could you say that? Because the net effect was the same. We lost 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, and we lost millions and millions, maybe more, to intermarriage, assimilation. We've got Shapiros and Horowitzes and Cohens and Levies running around. They really aren't Jewish anymore. It's just its name is there, but the identity is not. It's a real problem. So hardships like we're facing today come along periodically in history to wake everybody up, to wake up the Jewish people, and to wake up the nations around the Jewish people, that we should all do something called tshuva, to return to Hashem. And that's what it's all about. Shuvu alai va'ashuv aleichem. You return to me, Hashem says, and I'll return to you. So he's looking for us to do that. October the 7th was more than just a horrific event, from a religious or ideological point of view. There is that. Okay, the House of Islam wants to subdue the House of War. Israel is part of the House of War. Their prophecy is that this is supposed to happen. But in the bigger ultimate sense, Hashem is calling us, and sometimes he uses very difficult situations, the death of a very prominent person, to trigger tshuva, some horrific upheaval of an event, a migration, whatever, to bring us back to him. It isn't pleasant, but it's ultimately for our good. And we have to keep that in mind. Hashem is Hatov Umetiv. What does that mean? He's the one who is good and who wants to bestow good. You say, well, how can you possibly say that, Sanders, in light of all the stuff that's going on? Because I have a perspective on living that goes beyond this life. See, to me, death isn't death as we know it, and life isn't life as we know it. Okay? I believe that I existed before. You say, what? Reincarnation? Whatever. I certainly existed in the mind of my Creator, who infused me into this body to do things during this life that I've been given, to walk around in this animated mud pie called my body. And then I'm going to move on. And just like the sages tell us, it'll be like taking off a garment or passing from one room to another room as I go from the consciousness in this world to the consciousness in the next world. I am fully 1,000% convinced of that. Very confident. So if a Christian says,
How do you know you're not going to hell?
because I walk every day with my Creator, and he's promised me that if I follow his commandments, everything's going to be okay. And I thought,
Well, you're not Jesus. Jesus said he came to fulfill,
didn't come to destroy, but fulfill. You know what? Me too. I'm here also to fulfill the commandments. See? So it's no different. All right. Say, well, you're comparing yourself to Jesus? No, I wouldn't do that. But every Jew on the planet is really ultimately his or her responsibility, obligation, opportunity is to fulfill what Hashem has for them. So, and the non-Jews also have their quotient of things to fulfill as well. So let's learn these things. Let's come close to Hashem. Let's ask him to help us. And let's recognize some of us are called to different stations and positions.
What does the
Did you say
word?
something?
Yeah. What does the word really connotate in Judaism? Fulfill, in biblical Hebrew, because that's the word that the New Testament translated into English was fulfill. He fulfilled the commandments, which they make it look like you don't have to do them
Okay,
because
so uh, I'm really glad you asked that question, because when Jesus says in, I think it's Matthew 5, if I'm not mistaken,
that sounds right.
that I haven't come to destroy the law, I haven't come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it.
Yeah.
So
17.
the Christian interpretation is all the things that man is supposed to do but couldn't do because of his sin nature, Jesus came to fulfill, right? So he would keep all those laws vicariously on our behalf, and we would hitchhike on his righteousness. Does that sound about right to you, what the
Absolutely.
theology is?
Yep. Vicarious.
Okay. However, the word fulfill, if we translate that back into Hebrew, the Hebrew use of the term is lekayem. Lekayem basically means to perform or to establish. And so we, in modern Hebrew, we speak of it the same way, but this has been like the nomenclature, the language expression down through the ages. Lekayem mitzvot, lekayem Torah umitzvot, lishmor Torah umitzvot, to guard or to observe or preserve. But lekayem basically means ani mekayem et mitzvah shel, I'm fulfilling or I'm establishing the mitzvah of fill in the blank. A lulav, an esrog, mezuzot, or tefillin, or tzitzit. So he didn't really say anything so novel. He said, I didn't come to wipe it out. I came to do what a Jew's supposed to do, as well as far as following the Torah, fulfilling the mitzvot. That the Christian interpretation of that is so far off the beam as to be almost laughable. But again, it goes back to the basic problem issue that you hear Rabbi Singer talk about all the time, and Michael Skobac as well talks about it, and others. If you don't know the Hebrew foundation of that's underneath all this, you're going to miss it. It's going to be misconstrued, misaligned, misapplied, and that's what's happened here. So it's not that he came to fulfill the law for everybody. He didn't fulfill all the laws. Was he married? No. Did he have children? Not that we know of. You know, was he a Cohen? No. You know, was he a woman? No. Okay, so there are different laws for different categories of people. So it couldn't possibly, nobody could fulfill all the laws. You know, did he get married? Did he have a divorce? Because there's a mitzvah of how to handle the dissolution of a marriage. You know, I mean, it really gets kind of crazy after a while when you think about it.
He even clarified it. I mean, he specifically cleared up any question should have been, because right after that he said, until heaven and earth pass, not one jot or tittle will pass from the law until all is fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And then the Messianics will say, well, it's because it was all fulfilled later, you know, after he died. But the still point is, he literally said, I did not come for that. So why did they think he still did? Even if an idea of a time break was applicable, he still said, I didn't. That's not the reason why I came. Period. No matter when the Torah ends, no matter when heaven comes, that's not why I came. Right? So it's kind of, I don't know. I think that if Jesus knew what the Christians were doing today in the Messianics, I think he would be embarrassed, to say the least. I do.
Well, I think he'd go to synagogue and not to the first church of the Frigidaire, where you'll find God's frozen people.
First church of the Frigidaire.
Right. So,
that people are so cold they wheel him out in wheelchairs.
You haven't heard that?
That's funny. Oh, Lord have mercy.
Right, that's right. So I want to thank you, William, for again allowing us to share this time together and the platform with the people. I want to thank everybody who stays all the way through the end here. I know a lot of people drop in at the beginning and drop out. I understand that.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you, William, for providing a voice for quite a number of people to share here. And I want to invite everybody watching and listening to please, at least this month, buy William a cup of coffee and help support the platform. Coming up on 10 amazing years of TaNaCh Talk. And so that's definitely worthy of support. There's streaming costs, there's equipment things, all kinds of things to be maintained. William shouldered the bulk of that, throughout the last 10 years. But he needs a little help.
Oh, man.
And so if a lot of people do a little, that'll be great. We can cover it very, very easily. All of those of us who are content contributors, like myself, Rabbi Singer, and others, we don't extract a nickel from this. We do it because we care, we love you, and appreciate you, and we want to provide content that you seem to tell us is meaningful. So that's my pitch.
Okay.
And we'll see you next week, Bezrat Hashem.
Thank you, my friend. Y'all have a great week. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Hello, my dear friends. Hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going, and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNachTalk.com. TaNachTalk.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה